Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. I am finally reaching the end of my vacation movie catch-up, which just leaves the post-vacation movie catch-up after this review. And this was my favorite movie from vacation. I enjoyed the heck out of this, because the minute you just say the name Quentin Tarantino, you can just take my money, and you know I'm going to enjoy it because of the craftsmanship of Quentin and the way he can tell a story and the fact that he has some of the best dialogue writing skills in business. And then, you know, it's not just that, but you're talking about a movie that's set in 1969, right at the end of the golden age of Hollywood, in the year that Sharon Tate is murdered, and the setting, not just 69 Hollywood, but one of the main locations is the house right next door to Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate's house. And oh man, does Quentin get to do some really, really fun things. So why don't you pull up a chair, man, take a seat. We're getting ready to dive in, spoiler-free, into Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now, the other thing that immediately just grabs your attention with this movie is when you hear that it's Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt going to be on screen together. Two guys who I absolutely loved when they worked with Quentin Tarantino. Brad in Inglourious Basterds and Leo in Django. And to get to watch them on screen together was just magical. And to have them do it in the setting that Quentin establishes. Quentin delivers a movie that for me is really just kind of like a character and acting study of two of Hollywood's greatest all-time actors. Because it's a strange Quentin movie. It's very, very Quentin Tarantino. And it functions kind of like, you know, one of his smaller movies in the sense that we're really just kind of focalized with these two characters, and there are other characters in the movie that we kind of get to see, but these are our two guys. And the story is small in that sense, but it's grand in its scale, very much like a Pulp Fiction. But it's not Pulp Fiction, and it's not Reservoir Dogs or any of the other movies that we've seen Quentin do. And it's kind of, the pacing is kind of jerky, because you could almost categorize this movie as like a bunch of scenes that were all collected and put into one film. I've heard people say that, and I understand it, because as well as I think Tarantino ties everything together, and the story is cohesive, and it has an end, a middle, and a beginning, and it's tight. The scenes within that story, you don't necessarily have to always have them, right? Like, the greatest thing I think Tarantino does in this movie is giving Brad and Leo the characters of stuntman Cliff Booth and failing end-of-his-career TV actor Rick Dalton. Both fictional characters, but we get to follow them in these, you know, scenes together and individual scenes. And what we end up getting is some of the, like, craziest meta stuff you could ever get in a Tarantino movie. You have Quentin Tarantino taking Leonardo DiCaprio, who is an actor who's playing a role in a movie. But that role in a movie is also an actor. And in the movie, that actor is playing a role in a TV show. It's fascinating to watch, because obviously we get the clips of Leo's movies, right, when we're in that scene with Pacino that we've seen in the trailers. And, you know, yeah, that's there. But we actually get to watch DiCaprio film two scenes in the show. And both of them are connected to things that we saw in the trailer. One when he goes back to his own trailer and is throwing stuff and kicking things. He's like, you stupid idiot. Like, how could you mess up the line and embarrass yourself in front of all those people? And then also the sequence where you see him in all his, you know, same cowboy getup with the mustache and the long hair and the hat. And the little girl comes over and whispers into his ear, like, that was the best acting I've ever seen, ever. And you get two of these scenes played full out, like full takes. And you're essentially watching an actor play an actor who's acting in a movie while he is acting in a movie playing that character. And it's magnificent, because we get to watch Leo do his craft knowingly in a way where he's presenting it like where he knows he's acting in the scene. Like, the character knows that he's acting. And you get to just watch this magnificent performance. And then all the little things that Leo's doing in the movie. Like, Leo, I won't, you know, not spoiling anything, but Leo has like a thing that he kind of, I think, just added himself. I don't necessarily think Quentin wrote it this way. And it's very, very minor, but it happens throughout the entire movie. And every time you see it happen, you go, man, like, that's fascinating for that character. And everywhere Leo shows up in this movie, he is just absolutely brilliant. You're 100% going to see Leonardo DiCaprio nominated for an Oscar this year for Best Lead Actor. You're also going to see, I think, guaranteed Brad Pitt nominated for Best Supporting Actor. I think you're going to see Brad Pitt win Best Supporting Actor because, wow, man. Like, when you're in a movie where Leo's doing what Leo's doing, and Brad is able to like counter and respond and answer everything he gets in a smaller role. Oh man, like his scenes are unbelievably impactful and enjoyable and like, whoa, like wow, okay, we did that. And he just owns every bit of it. And Cliff Booth is a really interesting character. He's a former, I think, Green Beret, who's now this stuntman. So his demeanor and the way he carries himself is very interesting to the character. And the fact that he pretty much is now, you know, Dalton's kind of assistant at this point. He doesn't do too much stunt doubling anymore. But, oh, wow, man. Like, he gets 2 scenes. And one involves him being on the roof of Leo's house fixing something. And he has a flashback. Now, the scene itself is absolutely brilliant. But it features Bruce Lee. And this is probably the second biggest criticism I have about this movie, is the way in which Quentin handles this sequence with Bruce Lee. I've heard both him and the actor who plays Bruce Lee in the movie defend the sequence, and it makes sense. And you guys can go and look into this after you've seen the movie. And I understand where they're coming from. But it kind of ends up presenting Bruce as a caricature of himself. And although things about the sequence may have made sense to like the way Bruce handled himself on set and things of the nature, it takes you out of the movie really, really badly. Because you're just like, why would you do that to like Bruce Lee? Like, he's a legend. And I know Tarantino loves Bruce Lee. So it kind of takes you out of the movie because you're like, ooh, I don't know. I'm surprised we would do that. But at the same time, within the context of the movie and in the scene of itself, makes a lot of sense when you're talking about a guy like Bruce Lee and a stunt double. Because Bruce wasn't a fan of stunt doubles because they didn't really fight, and stunt doubles weren't usually a fan of Bruce Lee because here's this little guy and you're like, what, this guy's gonna kick the crap out of me? Like, you got these big tough guys showing up. So it's understandable why they wouldn't. And when you have someone like Cliff Booth, who's both a stunt man but also a guy who like has been in the trenches, man, and like had to go to battle and murder people, you know, kill people to make sure he wasn't, you know, killed himself. Oh, that's an interesting matchup. And the way it all breaks down, like I said, plays in a logical sense. But it was just like, you didn't need to do it that way. That'd be my biggest criticism. But in the scene itself, whoo, man, does Brad Pitt own the crap out of that scene. And he just makes you enjoy something that does kind of knock you out of the film. The other big scene for Brad is when he goes to Spahn Ranch. Now, George Spahn owned this ranch out in Hollywood, and they shot like tons of westerns. And a lot of times when you were in a western outdoor setup, you were probably at Spahn Ranch. And this is actually the ranch where Charles Manson brought his cult, and he actually kind of duped George into letting them stay there. And George kind of was older and toward the, you know, back third of his life, and, you know, he had his house, and George, you know, Manson would just send girls to him. And, you know, all of that stuff is accurate, and that's portrayed in the movie and depicted that way with Bruce Dern playing George Spahn. Oh, and it's wonderful. To get to see Pitt and Dern on screen together was great. But what Pitt does in that scene, oh man, like that is the sequence in the movie. I was like, yep, you're gonna get an Oscar this year, Brad, because wow. And the same for Leo. Right now, he's my leading frontrunner for Best Lead Actor. But you know, the lead actor category the last like 3-4 years has been jam-packed and really, really solid. And we haven't seen any of the big kind of award contender movies yet. But it's gonna be hard to match Brad, because like I said, Brad could be nominated for Best Lead if the role wasn't clearly the supporting role to Leo. So wow, man, like just I love this movie simply for the fact that Quentin Tarantino gave two of Hollywood's all-time greats some of the best scenery for them to chew on as actors and really display how good they are and still are. You know, the caliber of their actor has never faltered. And the caliber of Brad Pitt's body has never faltered. I would love to just ask that guy, like, what's it like to have a six-pack, like, all the time? Like, your entire career is based on, you know, not based on, but started on the basis of, like, we needed a sexy, like, young hunk for Thelma and Louise. Oh, look at this guy when he's got no shirt on. And you just sit there and you're like, it kind of gets you angry because you're just like, "Grr, Brad." Like, I've never not seen Brad in shape. Kudos to him. But they weren't the only two actors in the movie, right? There's another big name Oscar caliber actor in this movie, and Margot Robbie. And this is probably the biggest critique I have in the movie. Quentin doesn't do anything wrong, and the usage of Sharon Tate in the movie makes complete and utter sense to the story that he's telling about these two guys. I just don't know why you brought Margot Robbie in, unless, Margot just wanted to do it. And what she does is great, but it is so minuscule. Like, you hear Margot Robbie and those two guys, and you're like, oh my gosh, amazing. And then Margot's essentially sidelined the whole movie. They don't really ask her to do very many things, and most of the time she's just scenery, right? It's like, hey, let's remind everybody, like, here's Sharon Tate, she's driving by. Oh, here's Sharon Tate going to a party. Oh, here's Sharon Tate out there dancing, having a good time. Oh, here's Sharon Tate when she's pregnant. But we do get one scene with Sharon Tate and Margot Robbie that's mind-blowing. We've seen it in the trailer. Margot goes to the movies to go see one of her own films. Sharon Tate's like, I'm the actress in this movie. And you get to watch Margot Robbie playing Sharon Tate, watching a Sharon Tate movie on the screen. And what Quentin does in the scene, wow, man. Like, just the most beautiful ode and kind of nod tribute to Sharon Tate you probably could have ever done in a film. And it's splendid and it's marvelous. And it makes it a lot easier for me to get over the fact that Margot's essentially sidelined most of the movie. But that scene at the movie theater is unbelievable, and Margot's just always great. I just would have liked to have had her have more. Especially when like the movie had a bunch of stuff. I think Quentin cut out like 20 to 30 minutes from the Sundance runtime, I think. So it'd be interesting, like, was there more of her in that, or was she also... I just would have liked to have seen her do more. That was just a personal take of mine. But it doesn't really detract from the movie at all. It doesn't take you out of the film like that Bruce Lee scene does. But, like I said, really, really enjoyable. And then, of course, you get, like, all of the other wonderful actors that we've seen. Timothy Olyphant shows up for that show that Leo's doing, and it's, he's great. Austin Butler actually plays a real life character, Tex, one of the guys who helped Manson run the cult. And I just point out Austin Butler because he's going to be playing Elvis, and I really enjoyed him in this role. The stuff they do, and we'll touch on the cult and the Manson stuff in a moment. But I thoroughly enjoyed him. Mike Moe, who played Bruce Lee, I thought he did a good job with what he was given and asked to do. I thought I don't think he did anything to besmirch or dishonor Bruce Lee in any way. Bruce Dern, as I mentioned, awesome. Luke Perry shows up in this movie. Al Pacino, Nicholas Hammond, obviously Emil Hirsch, who plays Jay Sebring, who is someone who lived with Roman or hung out with Roman and Sharon Tate quite often. He had actually, I think, previously had a relationship, and when Roman wasn't around and Sharon was pregnant, he stayed at the house. But he was great. Dakota Fanning, who's one of the people at in Manson's cult, she shows up. I mean, just a massive cast. I gotta give also a shout out to Harley Quinn Smith, Kevin Smith's daughter. She shows up in the movie, has a couple of really nice moments. Then, of course, some of Quentin's other frequent actors. Kurt Russell shows up. He's fantastic. Has a great scene with Leo and Brad, and then of course Michael Madsen also in there. So you just have this huge cast of characters. I mean, like, Tarantino had Al Pacino in a movie, and that scene with Leo is great. And it's one of the first times you notice the little thing that Leo does throughout the whole movie. But there's one other person that I would like to point out specifically, where we're talking about like an actual scene and something that just kind of blew my hair back. And it's one of those things where you got this with Lady Mormont in Game of Thrones, where it's like you have this really young actress who can step onto the stage and just dominate the scene amongst all these seasoned vets. And you get that with Julia Butters. And I mention actress because she kind of addresses the concept of actress versus actor in the movie, and it was one of these poignant things when you had heard some people questioning the usage and like how he depicts women in the movie. I was like, ooh, if that was in the movie originally, awesome. If it was added, really, really smart move to kind of be like, let me answer that and counter it in a way that hits, and it's very poignant in the movie. And it's a scene with Julia Butters and Leonardo DiCaprio. She has two of them, and she is mind-blowingly good. Like, you are on camera with one of the greatest actors of all time, and she not only holds her own, she rocks the scenes. And the poignancy and the meaning of her character in the movie, I just absolutely loved. Now, The one thing that we really haven't talked about is Charles Manson and what his presence in the movie is. And it's because it's minimal. We see Charles Manson for maybe 90 seconds in this movie. Most of what we saw in the trailer is what we get in the film. But the role that Manson in the cult has to play isn't just like this girl who like is trying to seduce Brad Pitt and brings him to Spahn Ranch for a scene there. It ties into the fact that Sharon Tate was murdered, and we get to go to that night. And we get to have a little revisionist history, a la Quentin Tarantino style, man. Much like we got with, Adolf Hitler in Inglourious Bastards, taking real-life events but creating a fictional story and revising history to be better. Quentin tackles that night in the movie. It is the finale of the film, and it is mind-blowingly good. And it also made me wonder if some of the stuff that got cut out of the movie may have been more of what we see in that sequence, because it's a very violent sequence, that graphic classic Tarantino stuff. And we see Pitt get violent at Spahn Ranch, but when I was going the depiction of women in the movie, I'm like, outside of sidelining Margot Robbie, I don't really get it. Like, I think everything plays well. There were 2 women in the group with Tex the night of Sharon Tate's murder, so those 2 women are dealt with. And it's very violent. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is what people were talking about. But I'm not upset with it because what's going on within the scene, in the context of the scene, I'm like, yeah, get it. So I wonder if maybe there was more of that in the Spahn Ranch scene, because I could see where maybe that would happen. But if that was an issue, I didn't find the depiction of women to be an issue in the movie at all, or how Quentin used them, other than like just kind of sidelining Margot Robbie. But that finale is it's all the goods. It just, and again, gives Brad Pitt maybe my favorite scene of his, and DiCaprio to some point. The 2 of them are just so brilliant in that finale scene. But Brad Pitt, what he does, you're just like, oh man, because there's a moment where Brad starts laughing. That'll be my clue to without spoiling. But he starts laughing. When you get to that moment, you're just like, oh, you are crushing it right now, Brad Pitt. And how Leo reacts, considering the way the scene is set up, is also brilliant. And like I said, it's revisionist history style for Quentin Tarantino, and I thoroughly enjoyed how he decided to revise history this time around. So, look, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood isn't completely clean. Like I said, it's a little jerky in the way it's delivered, and you could literally just have every scene in the movie just be its own standalone mini movie, which is an achievement in and of itself. Like, the craftsmanship of all those scenes is top-notch for Tarantino. And there are some slow points, though, in the film, and the pacing isn't great. But, oh man, this is a movie I think that's just going to age really well. It's going to be a movie that people talk about for a long time because of the performances from Leo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt. 2 of their career bests for me. I was in love watching these 2 guys do their craft on screen, with Quentin directing them. And to see them on screen together. It's crazy to think that we've got I don't think there were any movies with Leo and Brad together until this one. So thank you, Quentin, just for that. And thank you for what I thought was an excellent movie. Not perfect, but oh man, was it real good. And what's crazy is for a movie that I think was real, real good, it's probably like in the upper half of Tarantino's movies. Like it's a middle of the road. That's how many good, amazing movies the man has. I can't wait to see what number 10 is. I'm excited. I know he's doing a Star Trek movie. I don't know if the Star Trek movie is going to be number 10. But if it is, Tarantino doing anything, I'm here for. So I was a big fan of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The only other thing that was disappointing for me is that I just missed seeing it in Hollywood. I was like, it came out like 4 or 5 days after I left LA. And I was just like, oh man, I would have loved to have seen this film in Hollywood opening weekend at Tarantino's theater. If any of you were people who did that, let me know how amazing that experience was, because it's the one I'm most upset that I didn't get. But other than that, I want to know everything you thought about this movie, man. Where does it land in the litany of Quentin Tarantino movies? He's got a massive library of 9 films now that are all stupendous. So let me know where it falls for you. How much did you like the movie? Did you not like the movie? What was and wasn't working? And despite how you felt about the movie, just tell me how amazing Leo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt were. I dare you to try to tell me that they were not good in this movie, or wasn't one of their best performances, because woo! It was. But anyway, let me know everything you're thinking about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out, with the old C-Man every time we're talking movies. You got to hit that subscribe button, man, the little bell that follows so you get alerts every time I make a new video. For the C-Man's Cinema Sit Down, I'm the C-Man, and I'm signing off. Peace! Well, I'll be. You guys are still here. You must be looking for some more content. Well, don't worry. C-Man's got you covered, man. You got videos like this guy and this guy. And if you haven't yet, and you want to come check out all the C-Man goodies, join the Cinema Sit Down squad, man. Hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the little bell down below that, too, so you can get alerts every time I make new videos.